Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Badass Engineers. I'm Shrouk, an electronics engineering consultant, and your host. And Badass Engineers, as always, is powered by RS Grassroots Education, powering tech, empowering youth. And today, I have an incredible guest, Dr. Shini Somara. Hello.
Hi.
How
Oh
are
my
you?
God, it's so great to see you.
It's so amazing to see you. You look incredible, but
You too,
you
as
also
always.
thank you. Can you introduce yourself to everybody who's watching?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Dr. Shini Somara. I am originally a mechanical engineer and fluid dynamicist. I now work in broadcast. So I've been in science communication for quite a number of years now. So I've seen the transition from television to digital platforms. And very excitingly, my latest book comes out on the 2nd of March. So not long to go. And super excited about that.
What is it called?
It's called Engineers Making a Difference. Here it is.
Engineers making a difference. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that.
It's full of badass engineers. Um, and yeah,
And
it's a book that really tries to change the public perception of engineering, because I think, there aren't many podcasts or shows like this one that really showcase engineers that are cool and like a bit unconventional. So I love what you're doing here, and there's a kind of the same ethos going on in the book.
I love everything you do. So we actually met at AFBE Live, and I learned about your work, and I was just in awe. So I know that you've worked on Al Jazeera and BBC doing engineering shows, doing tech shows, and how did you make that transition?
Well, it's kind of funny because if I was to look back, given all of my experiences going from one career to another, um, I would probably be a bit tentative about making the same decisions,
Mm,
because I had to take giant leaps of faith. All I knew was
mm,
engineering. I did my maths, my physics A level. I also did English, but I did my A levels. I got
nice.
into Brunel University. I did mechanical engineering, and that was 3 years. And then I went straight on to do my doctorate, which was 4.5 years in the end. And all I knew was kind of engineering. And then when I was doing my doctorate, you know how, when you're doing research, you have to go to conferences and you have to tell people about your research, and you end up like mixing with the global experts in your field. And I loved being able to explain my research,
Mm,
uh,
mm, mm.
not just to experts, but to people that were interested. And my research was very visual, because fluid dynamics is software that allows you to visualize how gases and liquids flow. And
Wow,
that's
that's really
super useful.
cool.
It's really useful for designing aircraft wing, Formula One cars, even looking at how air flows around circuits, which is your bag. Um, so fluid dynamics is super, like, it's real engineering eye candy. And what I wanted to do was kind of make that part of engineering, fluid dynamics, visual, so that I could explain to people how it worked, because I love explaining things.
Yeah, wow. So I've got a comment. By the way, everybody, we can see your comments live. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll answer them live on the episode. And I can see a message from Fabio saying, really cool book. I love the book and I love the cover and I can't wait for it to be out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not long to go now. It's taken me 2 years to write this. I wish I'd known you when I was writing it. You would have been in there. But yeah, it's 2 years of kind of gathering together some really amazing people and learning more about the different aspects of engineering, because there's so much to engineering, isn't there?
Yeah,
It just
yeah,
covers
absolutely.
so many themes. And I tried to do that with the book. Um, but yeah, I feel like I didn't answer your question earlier, which is how did I get into media? Because, when you make that leap, of going from what you've always known, where you've been trained, my dad's an engineer, so I kind of felt like I knew that whole world.
Yeah,
Then
runs in the
jump into
family.
something, yeah. to then jump into something that was completely alien to me, like media is just not something that my family is involved with. You know, they cringe taking photos at Christmas, you know. But I just knew that I wanted to be able to bring STEM subjects to everyone. And so I ended up, you know, television at the time was the biggest platform
Yeah.
for talking about things. So I, one step at a time, you know, doing internships and like various little jobs here and there, I built up experience, and, you know, it's taken time.
But did that sort of delivery, you know, because you have to be very good at communication, you have to be very good at delivery. Did that come naturally to you, or is it something that you had
100%
to
not.
learn?
No, I was super shy.
No.
I'm still described as shy, actually. People that really know the real me know that I'm very shy. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about being able to explain things that just really brings me out of my shell. Um, so I had to learn how to communicate, because when you do a doctorate, you spend a lot of time on your own,
Yeah.
and it can make you quite reclusive. And
Mhm.
so I really did crawl into this like fluid dynamics cave for 4.5 years. If I'm honest, I had a little bit of social anxiety, because I just was kind of immersed in data and algorithms, and it was
Mm.
very intense. And so I had to do various things to try and bring out my communication skills. So one of them was going to schools with an Enigma machine, you know, an old World War
Like a
II.
proper Enigma machine.
Yeah, an actual like antique, and explain to young students how this coding machine worked during World War
Wow.
II. And you know, when you're in front of a young audience, that's really when you learn how to communicate, because you've got to keep their attention, you know.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. I think I definitely would have never thought that you had to fight social anxiety and that you had to learn that delivery method and you had to learn that amazing communication that just looks like comes naturally and flows so easily for you. So it's really nice to hear, and thank you for being honest about that as well.
No, I mean, it took years and it took practice. But the truth is, you know, you'll know this from the changes you've made in your own
Mm.
career, that, you know, you have to have certain skill sets to do certain things.
Mhm.
And when I was doing the doctorate, my work was very much about spotting patterns in numbers. And so I became really focused on detail, subtleties. My brain was like really analytical, and these are not necessarily skills I need today. Like I don't today I'm not about focusing in on specific technical accurate details. Today I take a more macroscopic view. You
Mhm.
know, I'm not trying to make sure that I'm articulating in the most accurate way. I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm trying to use a language that engages people. It
Mm.
may not be accurate. I mean, it may not be specific. So I'll give you an
Yeah,
example. Instead of saying equivalent to, which in engineering means something, it actually has a symbol like 3 lines instead of an
yeah,
equal
yeah,
line,
yeah,
3 lines. And equivalent to is, you know, in media, I would just say it's the same as. You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
the translation you would make. So specific terms become quite generalized.
yeah.
And that was quite a painful process to like needing to be extremely specific, and then needing to be extremely general.
General, wow. Wow. So I think I've had a similar thing, but the opposite. I think I've always been sort of a general person, and whenever I've been writing something that's scientific or engineering related, I would have to learn the opposite, if that makes sense. But I love electronics. There's nothing that makes me want to get up in bed in the morning more than my work. But I've definitely had to learn sort of the way certain people in the industry have to speak and expect you to speak, and sometimes I've really put my foot down and was like, this is not how I talk, this is not how I'm going to talk. What I'm saying is still valid, using those simple terms that anybody would understand, right? But anyway, I don't know if you've seen a Badass Engineers episode before, but we have a
I've heard
bag.
about this famous bag. Yeah.
We have
Nice.
a bag. Do you want to know what's inside this bag?
I do.
So inside the bag are random questions from our lovely audience, and some of them are from me as well. But I literally have no idea which one's going to come out. So are you ready to
I'm
check
ready.
the
And
first
can I
question?
keep the bag afterwards? Because it's kind of.
Yeah. I'll send it to you in the post. All right, so let's go for the first question. Okay. This question says, what would you change about the industry? That's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, and it's a really important fundamental question. What I would like to change about the industry is really the inspiration for this book that is coming out, because when I graduated, I was 24 years old, so very, very young, highly qualified, and not very experienced. And at that time, the industry didn't have as much diversity and inclusion as it has today. And it was overwhelming. When you're trying to prove yourself, you're a new graduate and you want to be taken seriously and you want to make an impact and do good work. And actually, you don't look like everyone else. So you have to try that bit harder. What it led to was kind of me eventually kind of feeling like I didn't really fit in. There was a bit of imposter syndrome stuff going on. I think it's difficult as a young woman to feel strong and empowered amongst a group of older men. That was my experience. And add all those experiences up, and over the years I got quite exhausted by that environment.
Yeah.
That was very representative of what the industry was like back then. And it also gave me a massive motivation to try and change the industry, to try and encourage more diversity, to speak up. I felt like I actually had a duty to speak up so that other girls and underrepresented groups could see me having gone through the process of becoming an engineer, and hopefully say to themselves, maybe I can do it. If she can do it, maybe I can do it. And that motivation and inspiration to change the industry has continued all throughout my career. And it's not just to make younger girls or underrepresented groups feel like they can exist in engineering, but it's also to help the industry, because who wants an industry that is governed by a homogenous group of people?
Absolutely. But also not just that. We're telling sort of creative people that they don't belong in engineering. So we're missing out on all of these creative ideas, right?
Exactly.
But has that work ever got too much? So if I'm being honest, I'm tired of it feeling like it's my duty. And I'm tired of looking at the people who don't have to do that work in order to be successful in their career. So has it ever been too much for you, or has it always been something that keeps you going and something that gives you the energy? Because you also have a podcast, right? And
Yeah.
that's a lot of work, right?
Yeah. And, I got to a point where I had to ask myself, am I doing this podcast because I want to somehow get something back financially, or, I want to accomplish something in some way? And the truth was that I was doing the podcast because I literally wanted to hear from other women.
Yeah. That's so
And
beautiful.
and so if I didn't make money from it, that was fine. I still wanted to talk to these women anyway. And so I've ended up having to strip away a lot of things that were ambition led,
Mm-hmm.
and actually do things that felt right in my gut. Like I
Yeah.
want to do things because this is what I want to have in the world as something that I've created. Yeah, I mean, I do have a podcast called Esteemed Women now, and it's actually gone through a few different names. The first name was Silence, because women were too scared to reveal their identity.
I didn't know that was the original name.
Yeah, so
Wow.
5 years ago, it was called Silence, spelled
Wow.
Silence. Um,
That's so
and,
powerful
and
to know the story.
that was because women said, I'll talk to you about what it's like being a woman in STEM, but there's no way I want people to know that it's me
Wow.
talking. So that was like an interesting thing. And yeah, so I you made a point earlier, and I can't remember what it was, but it was really powerful. Your question started with something very
Was it
powerful.
about I don't have time anymore?
I,
Was it about I'm burnt out from the diversity work?
yes, exactly. And I've experienced that tiredness, but actually today, I don't let it exhaust me, because I now see myself as being in a very lucky position that I have something unique to bring to the
Mm-hmm.
table. And it's I'm sure you're going to feel this if you haven't already, but it's a real privilege to be so different that you can represent uniqueness, and,
Yeah.
and yes, that can be draining because there's a lot of pressure on the unique individual, but it's also such a gift, you
Yeah,
know.
I definitely see both points. So I do feel, oh, isn't that great? But I also see the people who don't have to work this hard for it, and they have really fulfilling careers, and they've gone up the career ladder without fighting for anything. And honestly, I'm jealous. If I'm being completely honest, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that some people don't have to do that day in day out, and literally it is day in day out, because existing in the industry means that you deal tiny microaggressions all day every day, which is, I guess, part of the reason I've gone into consulting and gone into sort of building my own company, because however brilliant the company mission is, or however brilliant the product you're working on is, it's still within that same industry, which makes it really difficult sometimes. But I'm glad people like you exist.
Well, I'm really glad people like you exist, because if everyone looked and behaved the same way, it would just be really boring.
Yeah.
I mean, the people in my book I've chosen specifically because I want to show that there is diversity in the industry, because engineering, my motivation for going into engineering at grassroots level was because my dad is an engineer.
Yeah.
And I kind of just grew up thinking that that's the way you think, you solve problems. And the idea that the actual industry wasn't as exciting as the way I saw it to be growing up, was disappointing. I
Hmm.
want to meet engineers like you. It just makes life so much more interesting to hear all your different interests and how they all work together, and the innovation and the creativity and the unusualness of what will result from your thinking is
Mm.
exciting. Like, it's like, kind of watch this space. I don't want to hear about bog standard solutions.
No, I'm completely with you on that, and the things that I've seen being developed by electronics engineers and beyond electronics engineers, who come from a different background, are so exciting, so exciting. Just because we haven't traditionally encouraged these people into the subject, so we haven't had the chance to see their ideas, and now hopefully we can.
See,
Uh,
this is where the dynamic, buzzy, innovative, vibrant stuff exists, and this is the way the world is heading. We are constantly looking for innovation, and I'm just not interested in people that don't have that sort of like wider perspective. All the solutions, technological solutions I've reported on for television have come about because of much more global thinking, a mixture of perspectives. That's where the cool stuff is.
Your career is so cool. I love it. I love it. Are you ready for another question from the back?
Let's go for it.
The Badass Engineer's back. It has a new theme song now. I should maybe do a career in singing.
Yeah. That's
Da, 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 da.
another string.
This question is from Hannah Esso, and it says, do you miss your pre-media work? I don't know what your pre-media work kind of look.
Yeah. And whenever I go and sort of like report on something, there are certain stories that I cover where I'm like, I used to be in the position you were in, and I miss all of that research. I'm fundamentally at my core a researcher. I love learning, experimenting, testing, prototyping, all of that stuff, and kind of just acquiring knowledge. And I really do miss that. But, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing and do that kind of research, because I really, when I crawled into my fluid dynamics cave, I had to be there. There's no way I would have got my doctorate if I was doing what I do today, because it's almost like a different kind of part of my brain. I mean, back then I was doing classical ballet on the side of my my
I
research.
didn't know. That's amazing.
And it was kind of like, you do your research and then you leave and you put your point shoes on and you kind of switch off. So it was like shut one thing down, start another thing. Whereas I wouldn't be able to do deep research and media. It would require too much of a giant mental shift.
Yeah, I think I kind of get it, because we spoke to Dr. Merritt Moore on last season, and she was talking about how it's really nice doing quantum physics and also being a professional ballerina, because they're so different.
Yeah.
It's one sort of gives you the energy to do the other and vice versa.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And what I do today actually is a kind of marriage of the two extremes, because I get to have really technical conversations with people that spend their careers doing something. And then my job is almost like a translator. And that's how I spend the best part of my day, is like, how do I turn something that would typically fly over people's heads into something that is really digestible and interesting and engaging?
Yes.
And that takes time to do that translation. So, it isn't a kind of shut down one, start another. It's literally, this is the job.
This is the wheel. It's literally, I feel, so when people can put something so complicated in easy to understand, simple terms, it means that they truly understand it. They're not hiding behind jargon. And
there's an Einstein quote in there somewhere.
Say again?
I think there's an Einstein quote in there. If you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it well enough, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know it, but I like it and I agree with it. That's what I was trying to say. Are you ready for another question from the back?
Go for it, yeah.
Hey! Let's see. Can I be like biased about questions? I want to like. Okay, I'm gonna choose
the questions you want to ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I can't control the bag. Also me. Can I be biased about the questions from the bag? Okay, so this question is from Matt Venn, friends of the show. Hello, Matt. What is it like writing a book? I want to know the answer to that question. This was the question I wanted to ask because I want to write a book too, Dr. Shini Somara.
You've got time. You've got time. Writing a book is a really full-on experience. I feel like the PhD was my first book, and that was 400 pages. But this book has, I mean, 2 years went so quickly, because, you know, again, like the PhD, you map everything out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, week 1 to week 10, like, you know, everything is just scheduled. And so before you know it, 2 years has gone past and you've got this book. But this particular book has been such a wonderful project because I'm working with people. You know, the book is very much about engineers' journeys into engineering. So, you know, there are professors in the book, there are apprentices, technicians, and everyone's got a really interesting story. Not always as you would think. You know, a lot of people think that to get into engineering, you've got to be great at maths and physics. Not
Yeah.
all my engineers have that story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really nice because I love talking to people and finding out, you know, about others. So it was different writing this book because it was more like a series of interviews that got turned into text. Whereas
Nice.
other books I've written have required deep research.
Yeah.
And
How
so,
many books have you written? Because you also wrote children's book as well, right?
yeah, so this is my 7th book. And yeah, the two before that were kind of very much like physics research.
Right.
And then the four before, my very first 4 books, were for such a young audience. It was kind of, I think it's tougher writing for really young audiences
I believe it.
because
It's also the most impactful, right?
I hope so, because the reason why I started writing children's books is because I was asked to do talks to young girls, young women, to try and get them into engineering. But when I say young women, I'm sort of talking about 11 and over. And
Mm.
almost by that age, they've made their minds up that
Yeah.
engineering and STEM is not for them. So the reason why I did children's books is because I wanted to break stereotypes way earlier, because people kept asking me, well, how come you got into engineering? And it's like, well, because I was raised by an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So from the beginning, it's like it was normalized that a girl like me could go into engineering. But not everyone has that. And so those books that I wrote, they're super cute. Let me see if I can I'll try and dig one out in a sec. But like they're just
Yay.
really they try and break the stereotypes because the main characters are very unconventional. Let me grab it.
Okay, I'm excited. While you grab that, I'm gonna grab another question. Du-du-du.
It's in a language that I can't remember what language this is.
Is
But
this Korean?
maybe. But it's a little brown girl, and the title of this book is An Engineer Like Me in
Love it.
Korean,
I
maybe.
love it. I love it so much. Guys,
So
if you know what language this is, let us know in the comments.
yeah, let us know.
I love it. I've seen yeah, I've seen all of your work, and I love how different everything is. So I've also seen you do what's that really famous guy who uh did like the car show with Jeremy something?
Oh,
I'm so
Richard Hammond.
yeah, that
Yeah,
one.
hamster.
You d- yeah, I'm so good at media. But yeah, you did some work with some really well-known people, and you're super well-known, and you also do books, and you also do the actual mechanical engineering bits too. It's just so varied. How do you think you've managed to do all of these different things? And this is not the question.
This
This
is
is not the question from
you
the bag. I'm
working in
just being
your
biased.
own. You've got a little other bag somewhere, and you're just like, um. I think I I work really hard. You know, my family and my friends and my partner will tell you that like I just work nonstop. So
Like,
I
do you
love my
do
work, and so I
yeah.
put a lot of time into it. And everything I do, I just do with all with everything I've got. You know,
Mm,
and so like maybe that's a little bit perfectionistic because I'm like, I just can't let things go unless they're good, and it's been quite difficult actually with my podcast because I really do that as a passion project, and
Yeah.
my time to be able to do that is just getting more and more squeezed. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I it's not the best editing or the best standards, whatever, but ultimately I've got to juggle. But yeah, I don't know. Everything I do, I honestly love doing it. And I wouldn't ever allocate time to things that I don't enjoy.
That, that you don't
Life's
enjoy.
too
Yeah.
short.
Yeah. That's so nice to hear because that's why I did the move that I've done recently, which is a massive move. But yeah, everything I'm doing now are things I love. I have ADHD, so I can't do the same thing for 3 years. I can't. So it's really nice to have the freedom to be able to choose what you work on and something that really makes you happy. But I do have the same problem, which is I'm working 7-day weeks. I'm not stopping work. Like my partner has to really help me do the social thing and do the friend thing, and that's not healthy. But yeah, I'm
I think
working
it's
on
an
it.
engineer thing because I'm like, sometimes I'll just completely forget to like eat or call friends, or I can get so immersed in something. And I'm also like quite sensitive to outside noise or
Yeah,
stimulation. Like I standard travel around with earplugs
me
because
too.
I just like I get so like distracted, and I like
Yeah.
being in like a little sound pocket of silence and things.
And you know what? Like I can't do my washing without something in my like I can't do something if I'm gonna get distracted by something else. Like I just have such a very distracted, but also single focus, if that makes sense. Yeah, sounds like we're the same. I know we've really gone over the time. I'm having so much fun.
Free.
Can I ask my last question anyway?
Why not? We're here. I don't have a choice. No, I love chatting to you. You know that.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, don't feel like you have to stay more than 20 minutes." Also me 40 minutes later.
Yeah, like
One
3
more
hours
cue.
later, there's another question out of the bag.
Out of the bag. So this question is from Innocentia Malungu. I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry if I didn't. Please let me know how to pronounce it in the comments if you can. And it says, how can tech be used to tackle climate change? I'm really trying to do some tech for good, so please let me know.
Well, that's a giant question. And it's actually a project that I started for a new media thing that I'm doing.
What?
Because I'm super interested in climate solutions. And there are so many ways to mitigate, to reverse the effects of climate change
Wow.
that we've caused. And so, I mean, there's just such a variety out there. I wouldn't even know where to start to just, I mean, let me just pick out the things that are really exciting at the moment.
Yeah.
I think hydrogen is really, really exciting.
Mm.
There's a lot of research going on in that space. And then there's like some really cool like tech that's creative and unusual, ice sheets normally sunlight bounces back off them, right? But
Yeah.
the fact that ice sheets are shrinking means that a lot of solar radiation is absorbed,
Uh-huh.
which doesn't help climate, you know, change, or it doesn't help global warming because, the globe is warming,
Yeah.
the ice sheet is shrinking, there's less ice to bounce rays off, and like it's just like this horrible cycle. So one thing that I stumbled across recently is this idea of like sprinkling these particles, like large, let's just say golf ball type things, sprinkling that where the ice used to be, and those kind of like ping pong ball, golf ball type things would reflect solar radiation. So it's kind of like replacing the ice, just kind of
like, where would you put that?
So in the poles, like
Ah,
in those, like sprinkle that kind of stuff in the poles. This is a
because
very
the ice caps are
untechnical way of
melting.
explaining it.
Say again?
This is a very untechnical way of explaining it. Like sprinkle
Uh,
that stuff on the poles, bounce that
and
sun.
that's what we're here for.
But it's like, just as a concept,
Yeah.
it's like, that is so cool. Like these big ideas, which are grounded in simple principles, which could make a difference to climate change, And we hear so much about the problems, but I don't think we hear much about the technology that's going to help. And that's something I really want to delve into.
But are you hopeful? Do you think we're gonna die because of global warming, or do you think humans are gonna get their stuff together and fix it?
Well, I love that you asked that question because, the book, Engineers Making a Difference, really does want to focus on the fact that engineers are really passionate about making a difference, which is different from the kind of business finance side of things where it's about making money. So I think we have the ideas, the concepts, the technology potentially to save us. But it's whether we pay for it and whether we invest in it that will be the obstacle. And, don't get me started on that subject, because it's like, when you see massive disasters, tragedies, devastation caused by climate change, and you've just read about some amazing engineering project that could have prevented all that, it's just heartbreaking, because I know that, engineers really are the superheroes of society. They're unsung superheroes. And engineers can help save us. But we just need to be given a bit more recognition so that our ideas can shine through.
Yeah, yeah. We need the right economy, and we need to be supported with our ideas. Yeah, I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Shini Somara.
Thank
And
you.
also, thank you so much, Ars Grassroots Education, because I can't do this podcast without the support, and I really, really admire what you're doing, Dr. Shini Somara, with your projects. So I please also check out Dr. Shini Samara's podcast, and I can't wait for the book. And thank you for giving up a lot more of your time than we thought today, just to speak to me.
Thank you so much for having me on this show. It's really cool to be on a show that had a quantum physicist and a ballerina. I'm like, being part of the club.
And the Dr. Shini Samara. Thank
Oh.
you. It's my pleasure and it's my honor. And thank you, everybody, for listening in, and see you for the next episode of Badass Engineers. Bye, masalama.